All right, welcome to the Explainer. This is where we break down some pretty complex topics into clear, engaging explainers. Today, we're diving into a fascinating leap forward in AI, creating solid, realistic 3D models from, well, nothing more than a few words. Okay, let's just jump right in. We have all seen those absolutely mind-blowing AI images that get generated from simple text prompts. But taking that idea from a flat 2D picture to a fully realized three-dimensional object, something you can spin around, edit, and actually use in a virtual world, yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. It's the next big frontier, and it is a much, much harder problem to solve. So to really get why this TextMesh breakthrough from Google's researchers is such a big deal, we first need to take a look at the problem they were really up against, the major limitations of the tech that came before. Now, don't get me wrong, systems like Dream Fusion were absolutely groundbreaking. They proved that, yes, it was possible to generate 3D models from text. That was a huge step forward, for sure. But the results? They weren't quite ready for prime time. They were more like amazing tech demos that had some really fundamental flaws. To really appreciate the solution that TextMesh brings to the table, we've got to first understand the two core issues it was specifically designed to fix. So the first big headache was the format of the 3D object itself. See, these early systems didn't produce a solid model like a digital sculpture. Instead, they created something called a Neural Radiance Field, or a NeRF for short. And honestly, the best way to picture a NeRF is to think of it like a really complex cloud of colored smoke, or maybe a 3D photograph. You can look at it, it's beautiful, but you can't really grab it or use it for anything. And this right here, this highlights this central problem. A NeRF creates this volumetric scene, which is just really difficult to work with. But what most applications, we're talking video games, AR, VR, animation, what they actually need is a 3D mesh. That's the industry gold standard. It's a model with a defined surface that's super easy to edit and manipulate. Trying to get a clean, usable mesh from a NeRF? That's incredibly difficult. Problem number two was all about aesthetics. As the researchers themselves put it, the models just had a cartoonish-looking effect. Basically, the AI process that was guiding the creation of the object had to be so strong, so heavy-handed, that it ended up creating these overly saturated, unrealistic colors that just didn't look real. So you see the challenge, right? It was a two-for-one deal. First, they had a structural problem. How do we create a solid, usable 3D mesh instead of one of these hazy NeRFs? And second, an appearance problem. How do we make that mesh look photorealistic, not like something out of a Saturday morning cartoon? And this is exactly where TextMesh comes in and just nails it. The researchers came up with this really elegant two-stage solution. Step one, let's just focus on getting the shape right. Create a high-quality, clean 3D mesh and forget about the color for a second. Step two, once we have that perfect shape, then we can focus on giving it a realistic skin. So let's dig into that first step, solving the geometry. How did TextMesh manage to get away from that cloud of smoke and create a truly solid, usable model? Well, instead of building the model on a NeRF foundation, TextMesh uses a totally different mathematical approach. It's called a signed distance function, or SDF. Now, without getting too deep in the weeds, an SDF is just a really clever way to define a clear surface. It basically describes every point in 3D space by its distance to the surface. And if that distance value is 0, boom, you're on the surface. And the benefit of doing it this way is just crystal clear. Because an SDF is designed from the ground up to define a surface, extracting a mesh from it is simple and direct. The process gives you a much cleaner, more complete, watertight mesh. You avoid all those weird artifacts and floating bits you get when you try to wrestle a mesh out of a NeRF. Okay, so shape problem solved. We have a great mesh. But what about that second problem, the cartoonish color? How do we give this perfect shape a truly realistic texture? This is where the second big innovation comes in, and this part is really clever. The researchers developed this ingenious retexturing process. They essentially use another powerful, pre-existing AI, a text-to-image model like Stable Diffusion, to act as an art director, teaching the system how photorealistic details should actually look. Okay, check this out. Here's how it works. First, they take that clean mesh and they render flat images of it from 4 key angles: front, back, left, and right. Then, they stitch those 4 views together into a single 2x2 grid and feed that entire grid into the image-to-image AI. The AI then refines that whole grid at once to make it look photorealistic, and that refined image is used as the guide to paint the final texture onto the 3D model. So cool. You know, the real genius of this whole approach is processing those 4 views together in a single image. Think about it. If you did them one by one, the AI might add a detail on the front that doesn't exist on the back. But by forcing the AI to see all sides at once, it has to create a texture that's consistent all the way around. It gives the object a single, stable, believable identity. So, after this whole 2-step process, building a better shape with an SDF, and then giving it a realistic skin using this cool multi-view technique, what does the final result actually look like? I mean, the results really speak for themselves. With a prompt like a DSLR photo of a fox wearing a crown, TextMesh creates a model with detailed fur, a metallic-looking crown, and a really natural appearance that just perfectly matches the description. And here's another awesome example. Notice the complete lack of that oversaturated, cartoonish look. You can see the texture of the leather, the metallic sheen on the motorcycle, all those little high-frequency details that were just missing from the earlier methods. And it's not just for simple stuff. Even when you throw it in an incredibly complex and imaginative prompt like this one, the system still generates a coherent, high-quality 3D model that seamlessly blends all of those wild requested elements. So this is way more than just a cool research curiosity. The ability to create usable, realistic 3D meshes from just simple text has huge implications. I mean, think about creating assets for video games on the fly, rapidly prototyping product designs, or even generating virtual try-on models for e-commerce, all without needing a team of expert 3D artists. Ultimately, what this technology does is it opens up the world of 3D creation to everyone, not just the experts with complex software. It turns imagination directly into digital matter. And that leaves us with a final and I think a very exciting thought. Once this power is in your hands, what will you build first?